Oh, wow.
Saw it twice, because I was like, oh my god.
That was just weird.
I always used to see a light coming up,
Yeah.
like a headlight, but there was nobody there.
Oh, it's just disappeared.
Hello everyone, welcome to Sunday night's Truth Proof, and I hope you've all had a good weekend. I've not had a bad one myself, and we'll see what tonight or how tonight develops over the next hour or so. And tonight I'm thrilled to be speaking with my good friend Don Lodge, and I think a lot of you will know that Don runs and is webmaster to the Truth Proof website, and without Don there probably wouldn't be a Truth Proof website, because he makes sure that everything gets added, and does a great job. And also, on top of that, he's got an interesting view on the subject of UFOs and unexplained phenomena, and you can always depend on Don to give you his honest take on things. But before we get to that, or before we get to Don, let's just have a look who's in chat. You know, we've got over 150 people here, so thanks for the support, guys. As always, really appreciated. I see Ian Lynn is in. Good to see you, Ian. Steve Colling, Patrick Daniel. Let's have a look. Liam Wilkinson, Carol Pointer, Susan Wiseman. One Day in December, Zeno. I did see a name then and it's gone. Cameron Sweetman. Glabe Horn, that's a new one. Mike Disabled Welshman, and you do real. Oh, we see Lee's doing moderating. Thanks, Lee. I think Alison will probably be in. Jojo, but I haven't seen her. Dragonborn and Rick Bennett. I could go on and on. I can't say 100. No, I'm going on for 200 names here now. I can't do that, as you know. So we're not neglecting anybody. We'll have questions in capital letters, please, for Don. We'll probably not get through them all because I just do them as I come to them. I'm not doing any preference here, so if you don't get your questions answered or asked, it's nobody's fault. So without any more rambling from myself, I'll bring Don on. Hello, Don. How are you doing?
Oh, as good as I get. Thank you very much, and good evening to everybody.
No, you're welcome, and great to see you. And obviously we chat off air about UFOs and other things and unexplained phenomena, and we have done for years. And I always value your opinion, and whether I like it or not, it's always an honest opinion, and it's coming from a good place. So for those that don't know, because you're also in the background with this, how did you become involved or interested in the subject of UFOs and unexplained phenomena, Don?
Well, I suppose I'm in my 70s now, so to say I've been in this subject over 50 years is easy to imagine, but it's true. I mean, the 60s were quite a nice age to be a teenager and discovering things in. So the odd book on UFOs and the wonderful and doubtful George Adamski and that crowd happening then was really quite trendy. And also, very briefly, when I was 4, I had a very, very strange dream, which nowadays you would say was an abduction experience, which I won't go over. It was pretty standard. In fact, I remember it, and I remember going into some sort of ship at the age of 4 and coming back down on a beam of light. Says I had a bloody good imagination, or there was something there. And I don't really put any more than that. But these things, I'm not, unlike some of you, the people in the audience, I'm not sort of really endowed with lots of paranormal experiences. I mean, I'd love to meet a ghost. I'd much rather meet a ghost than a burglar. Well, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If someone said there's a haunted room, would you sleep in it? I'd probably say yes. But no, I have my feet reasonably firmly on the ground.
Do you know something, Don? You make a good point there, because we've said when we've been on the cliff tops, it's the people that you've got to worry about more than the search and the quest for the unexplained phenomena. And so you absolutely spot on there. But you touched on something there. You said you've been looking into it, or not probably didn't even just an inquiring mind in 1960s, but how much have you seen the subject change then from the 60s to 2025?
Oh, I think you've touched on this, and I think I would concur that it's got from being a little bit sort of, you've got to be a bit weird and you've got to be a real far out hippie of the 60s to think of these things, to going through the 80s where everybody was very straight in every way, and perhaps, and in the last decade, it's got a lot more easy to talk about things. I don't fear, perhaps I've just got more arrogant, I don't fear getting laughed at, and I think I have answers for people who do. Yeah, and also the other thing that's happened, which again you touch on, and it's certainly my thoughts I'll share with you, is that it's no longer you either believe in UFOs and little green men, or you believe in funny lights, or you believe in fairies, or whatever, or ghosts, or dogmen. These things really do overlap, both in the people that you know and in the literature. And someone who's sensitive to one seems to be sensitive to another, which either means they're bonkers and neurotic, or they're actually onto something. And I think the latter.
Well, you did. Well, I would say bulk editing of the Truth Proof books, at least. Well, not the first two, but the others. And did you? I got, and this isn't a planned question, people. It's just coming into my mind as. Did you see a change in the way that our reporting the UFOs and the incidents? I don't even know if I've ever asked you that, but I don't think I have. Did you see any difference in the actual structure of it?
I suppose the difference is you were more aware. I think in the first couple, like all books, they were a little bit more innocent. I think when you got further along the road, and especially perhaps got more self-awareness through Night People, you've been able to see that things can and probably must overlap. And I think that's the bit that came through. It's probably your development, but then I know you so well. Yeah. I've noticed more than the actual words on the page.
So your I would say all-time favorite radio host would have been Art Bell.
Oh, I think he was great.
I would agree. I mean, obviously, I've got a great friendship with Howard Hughes, and I didn't have any connection to Art Bell. But do you think even then, when he was reporting and covering people's cases, did you think he saw the overlap, or was it just cold reporting of people's experiences?
Oh, I think no. I mean, he did some lovely reports on exorcism, and it was pretty clear. I forget, Father Malachi Martin, wasn't it? He obviously had a soft spot for him and was greatly influenced by what he was saying. And he covered lots of other things other than UFOs in the sky. And I felt you could tell whether he sort of, quote, believed in them or not, or whether he thought there's a couple of people who everything seems to have happened to, which we take them with a pinch of salt. He was gracious to everybody, but he was firmly a committed man.
Absolutely. I'm going to just this might not necessarily be a question, but I'm just going to throw them out. And I know that you want to touch on science and academia and their view on it, and we'll well, I won't. You'll contribute a bit to that because you've a few more thoughts on it than myself. We have very interesting stories of UFOs, lights, and cryptids from secret location on the East Coast, not far from you. Oh, so this is somebody telling us that. Then Scott, contact myself or Don on the.
Go through the website. I'll put it on as a report, and we can all read it. So, as I did yesterday, to a fascinating, so what you might call a ghost story.
Absolutely, and also, and as an addition to that, Scott, if it's something that you want to discuss before it gets to the website, still contact us.
Yeah, let me just say about the website, to save doing it later on.
Yeah, please do.
Is just how the website works. We try and channel everybody through the website. And when you click on the address, you probably notice it goes to two emails, one to Paul and one to me. And we get the same everything at exactly the same time. And what normally happens, and I say normally, is I read it, have a view on it. Then I say to Paul, 9 times out of 10, this is a good one. I'll publish it today. And he says, fine. The occasional time I'll either say, I think this person was possibly asleep. It's a bit nebulous. I don't see people really believing this. Or the other one is quite common. I'll say, Paul, why don't you go back to George and ask if he can tell a bit more about where it happened and what date it was? We want a bit more facts for the people. And then it comes back to me, and sometimes I change the English around a little bit. It's much easier to proofread other people's words, and then it goes up. So that's how it works. So feel free, write to us, and you read some of the others. Some are absolutely chilling, and some you think, well, it may or may not, but it might.
But you've summed it up, and that's exactly how it works. And I tell you now, people, I usually, if Don thinks that something's suitable for a website, we usually go with it because he's on point. Let's just do this one. Right, Bigfoot and Dogman show. Hi guys, do you believe the Atlas? I think it's it's not 31, is it? It's the Atlas 3I Atlas might be an alien drone and the start of something to come. Have you looked at this, Don? This Atlas?
Not much more than the statement says. Really, that's probably. I can't really add to. Yes, it might be something to come.
I think we're all on the same page with that one. And obviously, if you're a vested interest in UFOs and unexplained phenomena, you might be wanting it to be something alien related, but we really don't know. I think is it the Harvard professor? Is it? I'm going to say his name wrong. Avi Loeb, is it?
Yeah.
He said that it's emitting its own light, and there's many sort of facets to it that don't conform with a normal type of comet. So who can say? And I think it's going to be closest to Earth. There's a date, isn't there? And it is this month. It's going to be at its closest point to Earth. And I did have a little look, and it's if it were to change trajectory and head towards Earth, it would be 45 days away, people. But whether it's an alien probe, I'm on the same page as Don and probably a lot of you guys with no idea. So there we go. So
the great thing is that we'll touch on later that Abbey is part of the scientific academic establishment, and he's actually saying something serious.
Absolutely, and well, we may as well stay with that then. So how do you think in recent years science views the subject of, let's make it a wider net, the unexplained, not just UFOs, if you want?
Well, do you want to give me 2 or 3 minutes natter and we'll get it out the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, right. My theme really is, let me say, I had a scientific upbringing. I've read philosophy and a bit of quantum mechanics, but I'm not a professor. I'm not an expert. So if I get something a bit wrong or you want explanations I can't give, forgive me, but I'm reasonably good at overviews and things. And one of my things about this subject that happens week after week on Paul's show is we all want to know what something is, and we can't do that, and that's fine. We all know we've been down the pub or in family gatherings and they say, oh, it's one of your green men and UFOs, hey, we've all suffered that, or it might be fairies and ghosts, we all suffered that, and we know that science doesn't like what we're doing, mainly because it can't explain it. And Paul and I, before we were on air, we won't name him, but we know a professor who got interested very much in Paul's work a few years ago and was becoming a presence on this show. And I'm obviously not going to get his name, but I know he had to tiptoe away because he's nothing to do with science, but his job. People begin to wonder if poor old George is cracking up and stuff like that. This really happens. Right. What I really wanted to talk about is the uncertainties that academia, and by that I mean all the big universities and the science laboratories, have today. Now, certainly when I was young and I did my A-level maths and physics and chemistry, you sort of thought you could explain everything. You knew what atoms did, and quantum mechanics had come along before and explained a lot of things, and we are an expanding universe, and it all made a lot of sense. But since that time, there's been a lot of fantastic, exciting developments in science, but almost every corner they seem to turn, they throw up a question which is at least as weird as the stuff that Paul spends his time looking at. I'll just give you some very quick examples to prove my point. I don't ask you to understand it. I could if anyone's desperately definitely interested, and I'll give you a reference on a professor who could actually tell you. But let me run through this. Our universe is made, 90% of our universe is made up of dark matter, which is like a matter that has a gravitational effect on all the galaxies, but we can't see it and we don't know what the hell it is. There's a lot of dark energy that causes the galaxies to explode like mad.
So
we don't know what the hell it is.
So is dark matter essentially then the glue that's holding the universe together?
It is. Without dark matter, the galaxies would probably explode. They wouldn't keep together. But there's a hell of a lot more gravity in galaxies than can be measured.
Right.
Like, I don't know, like 100 times more. It's not just a little error. It doesn't. This picture we have of galaxies and the universe does not make sense under old-fashioned Newtonian physics at all. It should explode. For more, look it up on Wiki, or let me bore you for an hour. The other problem, of course, we all know a bit about quantum mechanics. If you want to know initially the mysteries of quantum mechanics, look up the double slit experiment. That's enough to get you gobsmacking if you're not already done it. But there's this thing about how one thing at a distance can affect something else called quantum entanglement, which defies all logic. There's the problem of locality, where again something can have an effect on something else in another room without interfering with everything in between. This happens in the quantum world, and is very, very mysterious. We can't properly explain quantum gravity, how it fits with the Einstein world, and there's also professors at university who believe that the best way to explain the uncertainties of quantum chances, which it is, the uncertainties of quantums, something could either be there or there and you don't know till you look, is to say there's a many worlds explanation. So every time I put my hand there or there, there's a choice I make. So that, to put no finer point on it, suddenly there's another whole universe with a Don with a hand here and a Don with a hand here. Exaggerating, but that's the principle. And there are people in academia who really believe this. So let's not laugh at Paul's orange dots. I'm going to speed through the rest. We got the Big Bang Theorem, which raises more questions, which I suppose everyone knows, it all exploded from virtually nothing 14 billion years ago. What happened before then? Where's it going? The universe is actually expanding faster than the speed of light, I'm told. No, things can't go fast the speed of light, but actually when there's something less than space, it can. So
that in effect breaks Einstein's rules, because nothing can go faster than the speed of light.
Well, it doesn't, because a photon can only go at the speed of light maximum in space. When you've got something at the end of the universe and
that's frictionless,
that's actually not even empty space, that is absolutely nothing, something our brains just cannot believe, that if you fired a rocket straight up, kept going and going and going, what would it hit? A brick wall somewhere? No, it would end up somewhere that was actually not even empty space. We just can't imagine what's behind my hand is in my hand. That's space. You can't imagine it being nothing. Well, that's the world that we live in, which I can sort of cope with, but don't try and understand it, because you won't. I'm nearly through all this now. We're into the explanation of the very smallest particles, subatomic particles. They got smaller and smaller and smaller. They found lots of them in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Then they invented something called String's theorem, which is very important for us, because it actually says that the tiniest forms of matter are little one-dimensional, little wriggly bits of string, all going around in different shapes. And for them to function and for the mass to work, they've got to inhabit 10 dimensions.
And we only know of 4, don't we?
Well, right. But no, they say there's 6 all shriveled up, and that's fine. But just remember that word dimensions. When we say, oh, this UFO might have come from a dimension, okay, the serious scientists are already banding around 10. Who are we to say that some of those don't come into play from other adjacent worlds? And, we might even have the dead or ghosts or all sorts of things, or fairies tiptoeing into those things. Don't know, but let's keep an open mind, because Academia has. And the other thing that I really urge someone to take a study on, if they haven't already done it, it's absolutely very topical. There's lots of stuff, good stuff on YouTube, is the question of consciousness. It may not seem that relevant, but it actually gets you into something called panpsychism or panentheism, which I won't go into now, but it sort of means that your consciousness isn't in your brain. There's nowhere in your head that actually shows a little cluster of nerves that said this is Don's consciousness. The modern theories are saying, some of them, that consciousness is a field that pervades all reality. And when you think about it, what is it? It's not people saying, oh, well, there's artificial intelligence. They're going to get big enough computers. One day we'll switch it on. It will be conscious. No, they're already more intelligent than I am. But I'm more intelligent than my cat, and I'm more intelligent than the mouse and the worm. And we all would have maintained that they have some sort of consciousness to know they exist and that they're hungry and that they breed and can fancy the mouse next door. Enough of that, but do look into consciousness. It's a very topical, fun subject, and you'll find people you agree with, and you'll find people you won't. What you won't do is to find a neurologist who will get a tweezers and say, this part of the brain has the consciousness in it. It doesn't. They're still looking for it.
So what we know you're not saying, but what are you proposing then? That consciousness is all around us, or all around each individual?
It's a very interesting, yeah. I'll stop there on my sort of scientific diatribe, because I don't suppose people have learnt very much if they didn't already know what I've just said. But I'm just painting a very broad picture to simply prove that there's some things, some people like Paul, who would not be regarded in academia, and may I include myself in that. There are people saying some very weird things who are professors of well-known universities, saying there's multiple universes, and that, the other thing, just to finish on, they're now saying, we know through Einstein, as Paul said, we've got 4 dimensions called space-time. They're now saying that 4 dimension space-time is not fundamental, which means there's another model of existence below it. So when we talk about 3 dimensions and the time, it's only analogous to what is really going on. I'll leave you there, because if you're not confused and crossing your eyes, I certainly am. But the thing is, permission granted to be bloody confused about UFOs and ghosts and shadow men.
I think we all are, and it's almost like the more that we learn, the more complicated it becomes. You know, if we could live in this simple world where we think a UFO lands and you can physically knock on the side of it, but everything's changing constantly, and our views on these things are constantly changing. Look at science, Don. From the 60s to now, what if you would have been talking about some of these things, and we'd have had the scientists of today and physicists of today talking about those things back then. If they'd have had that sort of foresight kind of thing, they'd have been laughed at. They'd have been,
absolutely.
So we shouldn't close anything down. We've got a question here, Don. It's going to take it a little bit more grounded. Let's have a look from Steve Collin. Evening, Don. What's your take on George Adamski, the author and abductee, and the George Adamski who ended up on? Oh, there's 2 of George Adamski.
Yes, obviously. I know the story. Yeah.
What, any views?
I don't have a strong view. I remember wondering, thinking that was a rather strange coincidence. I always a bit doubtful, even when I was younger, I'm always doubtful of ufologists who have amazing series of experiences, like see a succession of UFOs land in the desert or something like that. I always think that's a bit of a coincidence, unless they are fingered by some alien I don't know. I'm always suspicious of them. And I think also he was known in later life to sort of utter a few untruths. It's a long time since I read him, but he's not the first person I'd go to convince someone that UFOs were real.
And you know, I think Philip Mantle's the guy to talk to about the George Adamski that was found on
Todd
the
Morton,
Cody.
wasn't it?
Yeah, because I'm sure that Philip said that they'd solved this. I mean, obviously, if you're invested in case and you think you've solved it, you have. But I think he said that it were nothing to do with aliens. And this Philip, I mean, is as invested in the subject of UFOs. And I think he said it was something to do with battery acid that had marked this poor man, you know? So I don't know. I suppose it'll go on and on and on, the Adamski case. Are there any particular cases that's still intrigue you, Don, from 60s through to now, or any fresh ones, new ones?
Well, I'm always interested when someone raises what looks like a quite an exciting one, and I can't necessarily, without looking up, tell you the names. I suppose I'd turn it the other way around. I tend to spend less time these days reading about or listening to stuff about Rendlesham Forest or about Roswell and some of the great famous ones, because I think there's been so much dragged over them that's good and bad. It's very difficult to see the wood for the trees. But I don't think it's far to go along. You know, someone's going home, a couple in their car, and suddenly they see a light behind them and they stop and it goes around and then goes on its way a different direction. That's a pretty damn good UFO case. And there's just so many of them around that you can take your pick. I stay away from the famous ones.
Yeah, well, that's so. In your opinion, then, chicken and egg here. What's come first? Is it because people are being more confident and willing to talk about these things that we're seeing more reports, or do you think it is on the increase?
I think because a lot depends on what's actually out there. I don't see and read so many what we might call the classic flying saucer cases. We see a lot more. I think people are much happier, like the dear lady who gave us a report yesterday, are much happier to talk about shadows that they saw coming down the stairs a few years ago, and people are much happier to talk about things like that, or sort of just a strange light type thing. I think it's difficult to tell unless you're very specific. What is cultural? It's certainly more culturally acceptable to talk about strange happenings than it was. Does that give us the impression, perhaps, that there are more strange things happening? I think the other thing that you've touched on, I always think it's remarkable, and it's where the cynics join in, is now we've all got good phones in our pockets with good cameras in. It surprises me we don't get more decent camera shots. I know we get some, and if it's very good, they say, oh, it must be Photoshop. But there is an element, and I'm not the first person to say this, as if they, on occasion, are playing with us, and if they know we're going to get a camera out, they bugger off.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely. I can only go on my own experience and the experience of people. And let's stay on these cliff tops, and the police officer that saw this figure of 8 light up on the cliff tops close to him, you know, within 30, 40 yards, looked down to get his phone, and when he looked up, it had gone. That temporarily stopped him. Then it became 3 white lights, the middle one slightly higher, did the same thing, disappeared. Do you know, it's fascinating. Are they playing a game, or would people a bit cynical think, well, you're just moving goalposts? I don't know. But we've got another question here, Don. Let's just have a look at this. Hi, guys. With the introduction of the recent technology of AI technology, how much of a hindrance regarding future investigations and sightings, making distinguishing them near impossible? What are your thoughts?
Well, with AI, it should be a lot easier in theory to keep databases and look for common themes and that sort of thing. So that should help future investigations.
I think maybe Paul's thinking about people who want to dupe us and produce an incredible UFO over some landscape and will not know the difference between a real, genuine sighting and something that's computer generated.
Well, nothing to do with AI. We are very much in the age of being duped and manipulated by the media who tell us. Oh yes, okay, thank you. We're very much at the mercy of a lot of very corrupt news organisations on all sorts of fronts. And certainly, I mean, over the years, I think it's been recognised that certainly CIA and people like that have generated UFO stories to keep us away from certain things and made other stories ridiculous, so the original one is discredited. I'm sure that will go on, and as AI gets better and manipulates our brains better, as it's doing in many ways politically in many countries of the world, God help us.
Absolutely. One more. Are you okay with these questions, Don? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gavin, still crazy. Hi, Don. What's the most compelling case you have investigated or looked at? There you go.
I don't know. What? Oh, I forget the name. What is the name of the ever so famous case? The couple that got abducted in the city.
Barney and Betty Hill.
I read that quite thoroughly, and I've seen them. Well, poor chap died, but I've seen her particularly. I don't think they made that up. I think that's a very compelling. So once you prove one case, then you know there's a phenomenon such as abduction. So all the rest may be true.
Yeah, it sort of throws it out there. We've had the granddaughter, or the niece, sorry, of Barney and Betty Hill on here, Kath Marden, and she sort of kept their story alive. And theirs were probably, I don't know year, people. There'll be somebody in chat will know year. I know it's 1960s, probably. Would it have been 65, 66? But probably the first one of note, really, weren't it?
Yes. It was a very strong case.
From
unlikely people, given that they were a mixed marriage and they didn't want a high profile where they lived and everything.
Absolutely. Do you think, Don, and although we don't know, some of the stories in biblical texts almost parallel UFO accounts and things that are seen today?
Well, it says in the good book, Joshua saw the wheel right up in the air, doesn't it? So you couldn't get a better UFO report than that. But yeah.
Absolutely. And so what? Obviously, we run this website together. What have you any plans for developing the website? Has any? We haven't talked about that, have we?
Well, I think I think your thing has grown. Let's make clear, as Paul probably doesn't say, and especially as someone who's given a small amount of money just now, and thank you very much, that I can say absolutely truthfully that nobody in the Truth Proof empire is on a salary or gets a commission for the work they do. And I just want to make, once you're talking about webmasters, it's easy to imagine 500 quid a day, if only. So everything we do is voluntary. Of course, the £5 that we just got will go towards paying for a month's rent on our server, which we've obviously got to pay.
Do you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because anything that, and we're not asking for anything, by the way, people, we're not asking for anything, but anything that comes to the Truth Proof channel does get put back into it. I'm buying on. You might know what it is. People might know what it is. I know. What it's a Nikon 6Z3, and that's a lot of money because I want it for what we're doing. Do you know what I mean? And it's a lot of money. You're not running into hundreds of pounds, and that I'll be getting that in the next few weeks. I'm not asking for thousands of pounds, people. Please be aware. But Don made a good point, and all things that we'd never planned on talking about today. So let's have a look.
Well, can I just make one more point? You can just hold that for 1 minute about the website. There are some pages that are really a bit static, and it's partly the problem is I run a couple of other websites, so it's my own time and my own imagination. Now, this is something that would have to sort of grow organically, but if anyone out there wanted to run a page or a blog or put a series of YouTube links on an ongoing basis and be helpful and call it, the Molly Blogs page or something, obviously, it would have to go through Paul and the team, and it would have to be very on side with everything else we do. But there's certainly room for voluntary input and positive suggestions about the site. So if anyone sort of looks at it and thinks, oh, I think I could do better than that page, it's a bit bloody dated now, then do it, and you'll probably be embraced with Paul's open arms.
Seriously, that's a great point, because all the help, it's all welcome. Because I get up at silly o'clock and I find myself answering emails, and you feel obliged to, because sometimes I'm just like that brilliant email we got people have spent a lot of time writing to us and telling us about their experiences, and you just don't seem to have enough hours in the day. We'll just tackle this question here.
Yes.
We'll have a look. Don, do you think our brain is a receiver of consciousness or creates consciousness?
I can tell you that the academics in this field, and you might want to look at a name, Ian McGilchrist, real character, lovely guy. He's in touch with this subject much more than I am. He's a philosopher, a literary man, and a qualified doctor and neurologist. He knows what he's talking about. He would say that his theory is that we receive consciousness. It's all a collective pool, and we receive a certain amount, and I've got a little bit comes in and it's got Don written on it. Now, how that works, I couldn't tell you, but it does make sense of the way we exchange our views on things. It explains another name, Rupert Sheldrake. Look him up, lovely fellow. I correspond on a personal basis with him occasionally. He's into morphic resonance, which basically says that things get passed on through fields in the universe, not just through genes, which don't put enough information from one body to another to make them at all representative. There's two good names there, but the answer to you is we get the fields coming in rather like some sort of transmitting radio waves coming. And bear in mind, they could be because 200 years ago, we didn't know that radio waves existed. So there might be other modulated something or others out there that simply explain what we're talking about.
So I don't know that it's too far away from topic. You've heard of people saying, ask the universe. Are we asking consciousness then? And do you think it reads or listens to our thoughts? We know this is only theory and we're throwing things out.
I know what you're saying. I think we come on the area of personal feelings. I'm not a religious person in the sense that I don't think that Jesus Christ was the Son of God any more than we are. I think we're all sons of something that might be called God, including Muslims and all sorts of Buddhists. This is just my view. And I think that we do interconnect and that it can explain telepathy, it can explain ghosts when telepathy transcends time and brings an image with it. It's a very interesting model to look around. And that leads me on to another thing that's on my little list, and I have mentioned it on this channel before, but it goes with everything I've said before. One of the things people sometimes say to me, and it's no doubt said to you in the pub, do you believe in flying saucers? And to which, and Paul knows what I'm going to say, is it's not a belief. It's not a religion. I sort of know that they're around on a pretty high percentage thing. That's why I don't spend a lot of time reading about those sorts of things, because a lot of us, when we start off, we're looking for make such stories and say, well, this proves they're real. I sort of think they're pretty real. I think we're nowhere near understanding them. But do try not to use the word belief. And I think it will, I sound very patronizing, but I think it will set you free.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, and people will have heard me say it on channel, you know, when he said, we've gone past, if you've seen and you've experienced, or not necessarily seen and experienced in some people's cases, if you've got somebody that you place all your trust in, your wife, your child, your mum, your dad, and they're relaying this incredible experience to you, you kind of go past the barrier of belief, because you know, and basically you've hit the nail on the head with it, Don. There's just one here that would just, it's not so much a question, but it's what Lynn has said. Paul, you need to ask about, I want to know who commented last week after the live stream, if possible, about the MOD being on the cliff tops at Bempton. I looked at the comment, but unfortunately my computer was off and I was looking at Mary's laptop, and I thought, if I answer it, it'll come as a comment from Mary. So I didn't bother. But in the morning when I looked again, it had gone. I'm just curious. I know there's a lot of military exercises going off, not just around this area, but all around the UK. So there's not forced to be anything fishy or unusual about it, in the fact that other than the just on the cliff tops. But I was told about 3 MOD people that were up on cliff tops, and so I'm just curious. I'd like to, if there is anything more to know about that, I'd like to know. Let's just have a look then, Don. I'll just go down here. Scott's got a question. Definitely will do, no problem. Oh, well, we have picture. This is the guy that's got the information. He's going to share it with the website. Thank you, Scott.
Great. Thank you.
Pictures
I
and
look forward to
videos,
that.
coordinates, location. That's brilliant. And you know, if I don't ask the questions, you can guarantee that Don will, and you can put your trust in
Now,
Don.
coming to the website, we welcome pictures, even if they're not brilliant. I sometimes develop them a little bit because I've got Photoshop here. I can pull things up a bit when we don't change things. So please send any pictures, even if it's only, this is the stairs in my house where it happened. That's very, very useful and nice to imagine. What we can't have these days, we have to be very careful on the internet, is don't Google a picture of Driffield Square, because it's probably got a copyright on it, and that means that Paul will get clobbered for £1,000 for using it.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. So great.
I used to put them up all the time, and I don't now.
No,
I got warned.
So we'll have a look. Sparks. Hey, Paul and Don, have you heard of Eben Alexander, the neurosurgeon who had an experience and now believes the brain is a filter, and now he's pushing research in a different direction of consciousness? I can see Don writing that down. So
yeah.
And this is Mark, the obvious, thinks way out of the box and absolutely really sharp mind. And I've had some great conversations with this fella and look forward to more. Thank you. Okay, let's see if we've got anything else. We'll just keep going down. It's flying this time, Don. Right, Lisa. Question: could we be living in a simulation? I don't know.
Yes, I think that's probably. I mean, I tend to think I get more happy with this, that everything is a sort of simulation that we don't really understand. I mean, I've told you some of science's problems about the universe and time and consciousness, and I always like the analogy of my cat, because, and we've all got cats or doggies in our lives. We're going to hear from one in a minute.
No, he's there.
He's listening. Well, let me just tell him. It's Bobby, is it, your dog?
Yeah.
Bobby, now listen, you have an understanding of your house. You know what happens in the morning. You hear noises. You get smells that tell you bacon's coming up, and all the things. And you have got, if I quizzed you on this program, you tell me you fully understand your world and everything in it and what's at the bottom of the garden, and what's beyond it is a bit like the end of our universe, because you don't know at all. But you have a sanity and a rational life based on very simple understandings of your circumstances. And I think that the difference between Bobby and me isn't that great. Some of you might say there's none, but there's not much difference in terms of real absolute wisdom about the universe. And so the question, I think this is all very much an analogy. And I think that the reason a lot of people I'm just going on to another little theory that might help you, because I did study psychology quite years ago, is we all try and keep sane. We all try to explain our world. If our world becomes too unstable and nonsensical, or we take LSD or something like that, it loses shape and form and meaning, and we can very easily go mad, especially if we're. And I think that people who can't accept that there is a ghost in the house, or UFOs could land, or you name it, there's saints or whatever things you want to talk about, they say, "Oh, that lot's rubbish. You can't prove they exist. So there's no such things as ghosts." That is a very safe thing to say. And I think, I'm not being patronising, people who are following Paul's shows with genuine interest, I think have already made a very major step in accepting the unknown. And I commend you for doing it, because it's not easy.
No, thank you. Just quickly, just a few more names. We've got Simon, Iron Mogul, Zeno, Rick Allen, Steve Collin. We've done Steve, Alienate UK. You can only see a small proportion of people, but thanks for the support, guys. Let's just try this from Scotch Mist. Don't you think that the phenomena are outside of our scientific knowledge, so cannot be judged in scientific terms? Don't you think that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, science is normal. Things that are outside are paranormal. And so today's things that are outside scientific knowledge today hopefully will be within scientific knowledge tomorrow. Like there were people in the end of the 19th century playing around with sparks and coils and not knowing what the hell was going on, and they were just making very simple transmitters. There'll be, yeah, you're spot on, but it's a moving boundary, and that is what science should be doing.
You see, we're looking into this subject of the unexplained, and in a way, it makes me smile that people of science, men of science and academia can't find the answers. But let's look, as we said earlier in the stream, look how far people have come and what's acceptable now that would have been sounded like an impossibility years and years ago. But you hear science say, well, we will explain where UFOs come from and we will be able to explain it. We've just not got to that stage yet in science. And that's true, really, isn't it? You know, it doesn't mean that they're not coming from a distant galaxy or they're not coming from another dimension. It just means science hasn't caught up with it.
And you get that argument in the pub, but that's you've really hit on one there, Paul. You say, you know, there's a UFO. Isn't it logical there's a world 40 light years ago, a bit like ours, and they're finding more and more nice planets every day. But one's generated life like us, and they come and visit us because they're 1,000 years ahead of us and all that. And they say, yeah, but how can they come 40,000 light years without spending 40,000 years or so coming? The answer is, I don't bloody know, but they probably do.
Yeah, absolutely. And
just because I don't know doesn't prove they can't exist.
Right. I don't think we're going to have an answer to this one, but we'll put it up.
Yes, pretty well. Yes. No, I do know that. I listened to a thing the other day. I could bore you about black holes. They're absolutely fascinating, worth studying. They cause all sorts of paradoxes with quantum physics and things called singularities, which are right at the middle that everything crashes down, where time and gravity and everything else stands still and disappears, probably goes through a wormhole and pops up somebody else. But there is certainly a black hole at the middle of our galaxy, and I think they found one at the middle of every galaxy.
Really? Fabulous. So I said we wouldn't know answer to this one, and we do. So let's just try this from Rick Allen. We didn't start from nothing, Don. We can trace the universe back to the singularity. The laws of the universe emerged from the singularity, which was outside natural law, which puts it in the divine. Now, I don't know, but with... just test your mind a bit there.
I think, Rick, you may well be right. And as I said, I follow quite a lot of scientific debates. You know, people like Brian Greene, and there's a lot of good philosophers around, like Tim Maudling and David Albert, who do philosophy of science. And they got open minds. And sometimes when you get to how did the cosmos exist and what's at the end of it and why, the easiest explanation is to talk about God. And actually, if you refuse to talk about God, you've got a whole lot more science to sort out that's nonsensical. So I think you may well be right.
Nice one. You didn't expect that answer, Rick, did you? Don's agreed. Rick doesn't argue for the sake of arguing, and I hope he's smiling to his son as I say this, but he's passionate about what he believes. And that's no bad thing, is it? Let's face it.
No.
So let's have a look at this. What are your views on the theory that the other side of the black hole is the new Big Bang into another universe? Also, the theory that the theory of matter speeding up to a big crunch, rebounding into a new universe.
So the second one is certainly one of the theories of what's going to happen. And in fact, the universe goes out so far and then forgets itself and then collapses all back in again and ended up with a little singularity into nothing and then starts another universe. That's an accepted possibility, and of course no one can prove it, but they're using it in their mass. The other side of a black hole, I think some people are talking about the universe may have started from the middle of a black hole, but I think people are saying as far as they go down that route is at the middle of a black hole, it all goes into nothing that's infinitely heavy, and it sort of bursts into possibly another universe, which probably is a way of describing what you're talking about if you were standing in that other universe.
Fabulous.
So but they are both theories that are being examined by grown-ups, which is good.
And do you know, Dom, it's a bit different tonight because we're talking about things we don't normally talk about, which is good. And I know there's going to be some people afterwards saying, "Oh, they like to hear the reports of the UFOs," and I do.
Yeah. Yeah,
I can
me too.
If I just sit in bottom at garden and put laptop on, I'll just listen to a podcast. But this is good. We can't all follow the same path. And Don can talk about UFO cases all day, and hopefully come back on in a few months or a month, and we'll do that. But this is interesting. I hope it's interesting for you guys as well. We've got another Rick Allen question here, so let's see where we're going with this. In order to disrupt photos, the phenomena, whether cryptid or UFO, they produce a powerful EM field that affects the image.
One's tempted to think that. Yeah.
So does that explain the blurry images then, and all of the people that you never get a good photo of these things, and when you take a photo, you've got a ghost in house, and it's just a blurry image. Is that what's happening, Rick? What do you think, Don? Yeah, possibly.
Well, it's a model to explain. Yeah.
Okay, we've got some questions here. So we've got to Studio 211 Productions. The West Malling incident of 1953 is, in my opinion, one of the best UFO accounts in the UK. What are your thoughts on that, Don? I haven't got any because I've not a lot of knowledge of it. And this is Andy asking.
I don't. The shame is we're not on speech, because I'd get him to actually say which one it is. I don't recognise the name, so I may have read it, but
so there's a question here that I'm not going to get to. Forgot to do caps. Cheers, buddy. So sorry if I've missed your question. Do you know we must be way down the list here because Betty and Barney Hill's still being talked about here, Don. Are you still okay for 10 minutes, Don? Yeah,
I'll go on forever. You know me.
The Betty and Barney Hill case was legit because Betty Hill had some dust on her dress that was analysed by experts and concluded that it didn't come from Earth. Okay.
Oh, good evening, Mike the Disabled. Nice to. Well, I prefer the Welshman bit to the disabled, but nice to hear your name again.
So let's just have a little rundown. Is there anything that's on your mind, Don, that you want to get in before I find another question?
Well, I suppose it might be worth, as we're chatting about things, to just have a little look about something that comes up, is what's going on in America. Because a few months ago, we were expecting in Trafalgar Square to have loads of drone-type UFOs landing in from every continent of the world. And it sort of it fizzled out a bit, the drone stuff. I mean, I know there's been various explanations. And I just wanted to proffer my own observation, really. I mean, one of the people who were most hot on what was going on in the States was dear old Ross Coulthard, who, as a journalist, I've got quite a lot of time for him. He's pretty slick. I know people don't agree with everything he says, but that's his job. But my feeling is what's going on in America, without talking politically, is I think we've got to take a pinch of salt everything we hear, because we know that people are getting pressurized into saying things. We know it's very easy to get arrested for saying the wrong thing. And I'm also calling, including dear old Nick Pope. Oh, I know he's a mixed blessing on this shore. I've never fallen out with the guy. So, but he and his wife could easily find themselves being deported. And I've certainly noticed the vagueness and neutrality in his comments in recent times, which I think are very wise. I think possibly, and this is pure speculation, and I might be terribly and famously wrong, I think probably my assessment of having seen Ross over the Coulthard over the weeks is that someone, don't forget he's an Australian working abroad as a foreigner, I think someone has fingered him. I hope that's not the case, but for goodness sake, it really wouldn't surprise me. He won't be allowed to say anything that the government don't want him to.
And do you think he'd have to go? Like you said, Australia. Do you think he'd have to go back to Australia and then with security talk about things there? Would he have?
Well, yeah, I rather suspect he's a wise guy and he's keeping his powder dry and he's trying to not upset the wrong people. And that way, to me, he's not telling a very. I know he says things and gets people out the cupboard, but he's not made a lot of dramatic sense to me in recent times, and that might be my fault. But I think he's playing it safe. I think we'll watch and see, and not judge what they were, because I don't think we know. Okay, right. Rick Allen's here tonight quite a bit. Rick's accused me in past of not putting his questions out. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just the way that they come. And if his questions in the past were at the bottom of the list, they won't get asked. Don,
In your opinion, what do the aliens want?
Well, if I knew that, well, you know me well enough to say I won't say dogmatically what they want, because you could easily say I think you're wrong, and I'd say yes. There are various models. I mean, if I was answering this 50 years ago, I'd have thought it was it Lonnie Zamora? You know, we were thinking
Lonnie
of people.
Zamora, yeah, the police officer.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite ones, because I'd love that to happen to me. Shame we didn't have more witnesses, but to be out in the car in the desert and a flying saucer comes down and some people come out and scratch around, take some samples and get in and chug off again. I mean, it's very easy to see what they wanted, and one would think that if there's a whole range of phenomena, which I suspect there are, some of them, the more conventional flying saucer stories, are probably expeditionary like we would be. But don't forget, we don't know what the hell an alien might look like. They might look like a jellyfish. They might be some strange spiritual thing to us. We don't know. What do they want? They might want to learn from us. The people say they want our genes, which is why they want blood from animals, or they want children. I mean, there's a lot of different models from various reports that would give you a whole range of answers. I think it's probably the best we can do.
I wonder why we always think that they need the thumbs and to be bipedal. Like you've just said, the intelligence could be a completely... I mean, it might not evolve. It might be living intelligence in itself. It might not need machines. Do you think they understand? I'm asking questions I realize that we've not got answers for. Do you actually think that, you know, when we look at a dog, like we've been talking about your cat, and they understand what we're telling them? He knows that in the morning he gets chicken, and he knows when I say the word chicken, he's up and he's... But outside of that, I'm just making a sound. He doesn't know what a chicken is. He would if he saw one, but he wouldn't know that name is for a chicken. Do you think they understand us? Do you think they think they're that intelligent that they can do whatever they want to do? But do you think they actually understand us?
I think there are different phenomena that do different things, and one end of the spectrum must be the Zamora flying saucer. That sort of thing's easy to understand. The one, if we're talking about a continuous spectrum, the case I put up yesterday of the dear lady who saw shadowy figures, and her husband did as well, that entity possibly does not fall in the same category. If we think of the traditional household ghost, they are very surprised often when they come across us. In fact, one of the earliest, I can't tell you what number, it's one of the earliest reports that we put up on our website was happened to a dear lady who lives at Acklam, who's a dear friend of mine. I've known her for 30 years, honest as the day is long, and she's a hell of a character, but she was sleeping in the room. And this old man came out and bent over the bed, I think sat down or did the normal things they do. And she's lovely, because knowing her, I won't mention her name, she said to this entity, about the second night, I think it was, "Oh, I really wish you wouldn't keep appearing. I know you say it's your house, but I own it now and you're frightening me. I wish you wouldn't appear." And he actually said, "Oh, sorry," and went away and never came back. And okay, that might have been a dream, and and my wife will confirm this, heard the same thing. She went to a village fete in Acklam and to a jumble stall and saw a picture of an old man. And she said, "That was the man. Definitely, that was the man." And someone worked out he'd been in the house. So it's a nicely tied up ghost story. Yeah. It's real. Now, that exchange was between two people who were really quite ignorant of why they were there. And I think there was no forethought between that encounter. But people come in your room and maybe want to make you fertile or whatever. I think they probably know what they're doing.
Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, different scenarios there, and so the lady who put the report in yesterday and seeing these shadows, these dark shadows. I mean, I wrote to her as well, and because I think they were aware of her, because every time she looked, they disappeared, didn't they? They weren't there. And so there is an awareness to these things wherever they're residing, don't you think?
Yes, and I'll add to that. I'll add to that another thing that thought that's really been generated by your stories of the groups you go up to Bempton with. I think some people are lightning conductors for phenomena. They can be in a group and make things happen. I also think there are some people who are in groups and stop things happening.
Mm.
What do you think of that, Paul? Have you?
I think you're spot on, and I really do. I'm not just agreeing with you for the sake of it. We've seen it, we've had it, and I think
Really?
people, yeah, we've had that happen, and we just know. And is it because some of those people? It's my mind's made up. I've come up here. I'm a bit cynical, but having said that, then I contradict myself because we took a lady up and her husband, Wendy, who's very interested, and it were her birthday, and her husband asked her what she wanted to do for her birthday, and she wanted to come to Bempton, and he didn't have any interest in any of this. And he was keen to tell us that, but in a nice way. They were a lovely man, and we were up there in the darkness, and I don't know, stayed 2-3 hours, and we all left at the same time. A big group of people there, and they were behind for no other reason than they'd been stood in a little hollowed out bit because he'd not come dressed for the cold, and it were out of the wind. Got a weak torch or his phone light, and as he's walking along, I turned round and I said, "Are you all right there?" And to Wendy and her husband, he went, "Yeah, I'm just waiting for these." And he looked, and he claims, and it frightened him, and I wouldn't say made him a believer, but altered his view on things. That he just in his peripheral, he was aware of a pair of legs walking outside of him. There was nobody there, but it weren't just for 10 or 20 feet. He said they'd been there for a long time. So there we've got somebody who's not really into believing about this thing. So is it at times targeting people to sort of give them a little lesson in, look, we are real? I don't know.
Yeah, could be. I have found a bit humorous point, but people who don't believe in ghosts, in my experience, are more afraid of ghosts than people who do.
Yeah, very good.
You can see the sense in that because they're blocking a fear. Oh, I don't believe in ghosts. No, I'm not going to go in there. You can almost hear someone saying it.
So have we time for a few more questions, Don?
Yeah, you're the boss.
Yeah. Okay, let's just have a look at this, Scott. Right, we'll just keep this one brief because I don't think it is. Do we think the government, not that we're not keeping it brief because I don't think it, but my viewers are. Do we think the government message today is UFO related or just a scaremongering? I just think it's a message that's been put out. Don't want to go too deep with that one. Really.
I agree with you on that one.
So, but I just want to put it up out of decency. Let's have a look. We might have run out of questions. Oh, no, we haven't.
Don't worry, I'm not dashing off.
Right. So this is what you're talking. We've missed the first bit of this flicker. Saw one in 1994, countryside, back of the hotel, which looks onto grazing areas. So we could be talking about a big cat here, flicker. And I do apologise, but that makes sense now that your original question weren't in capitals. So it's been sort of.
Well, right, please, Flicker, write the whole story and send it to us via this website.
Absolutely, yeah. Ross Gilbert, let's have a look. With AI getting better every day, it's getting harder to recognise a fake. How would you determine if it is fake or not? I don't think I'd be qualified to determine if it were fake or not, Ross. I've not said it to Don, but I'm so pleased that I wrote The Night People and the other books before AI, because I think there's people just churning books out now, Don, and the machine that is AI is doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we're answering our own question there. It is harder, and especially with Photoshop and that sort of thing. I don't know if Paul finds this, but reading reports and meeting people or talking to people who've seen things, I actually find face-to-face communication more convincing than some wonderful picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because you can pick up the emotions. You know when someone's lying.
Let somebody paint the picture. Yeah, with what they're actually saying. I agree. Let's have a look. We'll just do this one. Don, any thoughts on consciousness with experiences?
No, on connections with experiences.
Oh, sorry. Connections. Connections with experiences, and I have found amazing number having twins running our family. Any thoughts?
Well, I think, Shelley, that is well recognised for people who studied it, and I haven't, but it's all to do with telepathy, which I think now is being treated a lot more seriously. And telepathy among twins, obviously, one can sort of see, if there is a model for telepathy, why it would be that much more convincing. And there's a lot of evidence, even in serious science nowadays.
Let's just do that. I've got two friends. That's our stupid thing to say. I know some twins, and one of them says, if he hurts, I do. You know, and that's how they talk, you know. And then we've got the Kinsellas, who are inseparable. They'd have been people to ask about that as any kind of connection. One of the theories as how it doesn't take UFOs thousands of years to arrive is the use of wormholes, the folding of the universe theory, etc. Okay.
But sound, I've read that. That's a sound theory.
Well, that's over. We've got caught up with lots of reports of Dogman in Scotland, the Moray Firth area. Yeah, I'm fascinated with the reports of Dogmen. We know that, in ancient texts and old writings, we can hear things that you could think, well, this is somebody's alluding to a Bigfoot. But Dogman seems to have come to the forefront, and lots of people are reporting these things. And it can't be just that they're feeling bolder about reporting them because other people are now. What are these things? Are they some kind of genetically engineered, I don't know, cryptid? Or I don't know. What are your thoughts, guys? And we ain't got time tonight on that, but lots of reports of Dogman. I find it interesting. I mean, we talk about the werewolf and that phenomenon, and I think once again, instantly people just think it's all about things in the movies, but these reports just go back hundreds and hundreds of years. Somebody contacted me today, Don, that were telling me about reports from Flixton in the 1960s. We know that's not hundreds of years, but it's way before I started talking about this and bringing Flixton into the forefront.
The Dogman I'd like to see, and one doesn't know how serious to take it. In one of these Skinwalker Ranch books by someone famous, I remember reading of them driving into the ranch, and there was a Dogman standing up on two legs, smoking a cigarette by the gate as he drove in. I just thought, I want one of those. They sound fun.
One of them. Let's have a look. We've got Martin Abbas. Don, have you collated any similarities in the accounts you have? Places, activity, lights, injuries?
No, Martin. I know you are, so I think you're better qualified to do this. So do it and put it on our website. But no, I haven't done any form or any sort of rough mental tying together, which leads me to my thoughts of where I am today, really.
Right, so we've got this question here, and I know what it is. I'll probably not be able to pronounce it. Can I ask you both what you think the Omu? Come on, Don. That's the second comet. There's three, isn't there? Three.
Yeah, the great big ugly thing that went sneaking through.
That one was the fastest. This one, Omluama, whatever they call it. I might have done it. I might have not done it. So there's been three. What do they call them? Interstellar bodies, or there's some.
Well, it depends whether you're a government or a university or Avilo. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know, but I'm certainly got an open mind to think that we don't know what an alien spacecraft would look like. It probably wouldn't have four fins and a point on it. So it may well have been. I think you'll also learn quite a lot about academia and governments, because even if it did have red lights flashing, I don't think we'd ever hear about it.
Right, I'm not putting Don on spot here. I've put myself on spot. I've had a chance to read this. Don, what are your thoughts on the Truth Proof Report 100, the column of light photograph? You might not remember it, Don, but this is a farmer, I'm sure I'm right, that observed the column of light that came up from the ground and went back down into the ground. And I'm sure he sent us the photograph. Yeah. So that were interesting. And Tom's asking the question because it was Tom's friend that got that report for us. So it's just fascinating, Tom. It really is. And once again, how can you describe a light that's coming up from the ground on farmland, and then you go over to it and there's nothing there? It kind of doesn't make sense. There was no people there. There was nothing. So I don't know, Tom. No. Any thoughts, Don? None? No.
No, not what I could prove.
Right. Well, we're going to wind down in a moment, guys. And right, we just got. I keep saying we're going to wind down, and I keep going down and finding questions. Right, Rick Allen again. If they're hybridizing with us, then they are built on the same 4 molecules of DNA as we are. Okay?
Yeah, that's a good thought, Rick. Yes.
Right. So I'm going to wind it down there, guys, because I keep winding down and I'm finding more and more questions. Don, will you come back and have another natter with us at some point, please?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that tonight has been a bit different, and I've sort of, when I mentioned it, doing it to Paul, what I might be talking about, I deliberately thought I'd try and give a bit of a backdrop to all the many reports that we hear week after week, and sort of left really just shrugging our shoulders. And I think it's nice to see how what we're studying, the relationship between that and academia needs a constant nudge, and it needs it is getting somewhere, and there are a few good, brave people. And I would just urge other people to some of the things I've mentioned, like, you know, the cosmology and quantum and string theory, and the consciousness is a clear one, is do a little bit of research. There's YouTube videos for all tastes and abilities, but it's quite fascinating to see at least other people are talking of just as many strange things as Paul does, and they're getting money for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, then, Don, thank you very much.
I'll come back sometime when I've got something to say.
We've hit over. Oh, you've got loads to say. We've hit over 300 in chat. So thanks for support, guys. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Oh, wow.
Saw it twice. So I was like, oh my god.
That was just weird.
I always used to see a light coming up,
Yeah.
like a headlight, but there was nobody there.